Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome, everybody.
Our weekly EV podcast. One of the things we're going to cover today is the LA riots, and you can see the background there. This was actually an image pulled off of the web, ran it through AI, and it made the flames a bit more pronounced. But if you look carefully, the sign above Mark's head clearly indicates this is an AI improvement.
Yes. But, you know, even I saw some of the footage and some of this online. The real non-AI edited footage was pretty spectacular as well.
Yeah. Especially where you've got the people standing on top of the Waymos with Mexican flags, or the nut job that had a skateboard standing on top of a car hitting the bubble on top of the Waymo.
Yeah.
Left and right. So I've got an image I'm going to pop up here. This is credit to Germany. And let's see if I get this set up here. No, it went away. Hang on a second here. There we go. This again. I'm going to go full screen. There we go. All right. So the headline is Germany now gets over 60% of its electricity from renewable resources. They seem to be leading the charge globally on the conversion to renewable energy. You know, we saw that. My family, we go there regularly for, many decades now. And even 30 years ago, it was amazing to drive through the alpine countryside, see these beautiful farmhouses with the porches with geraniums on them and the cows in the fields. And on the red tiled roofs were a bunch of solar panels, well before that concept caught on here in the United States. So I'm not surprised, I guess is what I'm saying. They did lag behind a bit with EVs, though.
Well, a little bit they did. And I know that they hurt the EV conversion when they abruptly pulled the rug out from under everybody and unannounced just stopped all of the incentives for EVs. But it seems like they're picking up the pace again a little bit on that. And
China's feeding a lot of cars into that country as well. And then, of course, we've got Giga Berlin there cranking out the Model Ys. So.
That's exactly right. And considering the political instability that's gone on over the past 3 or 4 years between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe, this type of thing, it reduces Germany's independence on any outside source, especially Russia, on things like natural gas for power needs.
Absolutely, yes. So they say it's a powerful step towards a greener, more sustainable future for all. And they say every panel, every turbine counts, and it inspires the world to follow. So congratulations, Germany. Good job there. All right. Another headline here is that coal is beginning to drop in the United States. Let me see if I have a picture to go with that. I don't, all right? So the headline here says coal dropped from nearly half of U.S. electricity in 2011 to just 15% last year. So it looks like the coal plants are beginning to be decommissioned. They say that coal now has about 15% of the share in the U.S. in terms of supplying electricity, which is now less than natural gas, which is more than 40%, or renewable energy, which is 24%, and nuclear power at 19%. They say that nearly 300 coal-powered stations closed in the U.S. between 2010 and 2019.
That's kind of an amazing statistic because here in Arizona, we've lost a lot of coal-generating stations, but a lot of them have been simply converted over to natural gas generating stations. Natural gas, while the environmentalists don't really like it a whole lot, it's so much more clean and environmentally friendly than coal is.
It is, yes. So it looks like renewable energy is taking hold in the United States. Now, here's another interesting article. Automakers are freaking out as China restricts critical materials. They say there's one thing you need to know about the automotive supply chain. Disruptions happen slowly and then all at once.
Yeah.
And what they mean by that is during the COVID pandemic, It took a while for factory closures to lead to inventory problems. But when they did, it happened everywhere and prices went bananas. Now we're seeing a similar disruption play out after the root cause has supposedly been addressed. What they mean by that, the tensions between U.S. and China flared in April. China curbed exports of rare earth materials and magnets containing them. Those elements are crucial to modern vehicles, being used in everything from electric motors for EVs and hybrids to in-car speakers. And as we saw during COVID, losing access to any one key element component can hold back production. Kind of neat to picture an assembly line.
Right.
You've got a number of, in this case, automotive cars being built. Well, if there's a critical component that's preventing those cars from being completed, what happens is you start stockpiling inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go on for some period of time, and of course the financial impact is severe. Once the production stalls, they say automakers need to rework their inventories and other materials to make sure that a stall in one component doesn't lead to excessive inventory of another. It's a mess, they say, and it's just starting. Now, they do have good news, though. The good news is that the root cause seems to have been addressed. China granted export licenses for rare earth materials to a few U.S. companies, this is according to Reuters. And then on Friday, last Friday, Trump said that Chinese leader Xi was lifting those restrictions.
This is still a really volatile situation. We've seen this even in the sales of just normal products, because we import at Gruber a lot of materials from China, from Southern Asia. And we've seen disruptions in the delivery of products. Products that are supposed to be on the boat for 28 days are 6 weeks and counting, and won't be here for another 6 weeks probably. I think of that as a microcosm of what could be happening on a much larger scale in the
on a global
industry.
scale. Yeah, most certainly. You know, we make fiber optic cables, for example, and there's a steady supply of raw materials coming in, from the bulk fiber to the connectors, Frank Charlie, Sam Charlie, you know, all of the various types, MTP. And like you were pointing out, we don't have a huge stockpile of those raw materials because we're trying to do just in time.
Yeah.
And when you have a hiccup in the supply chain somewhere that suddenly delays things, you have to shut down part of your production line. And of course, the customers also, I mean, this goes downhill now. They have commitments. There's construction projects in process, data centers that are being built, co-locations, AI data centers.
Yeah.
And those aren't going to be happy about slowing down because a critical raw material to connect things together is not available.
Yeah, it's been quite an adventure to see. And you know, if you go onto Amazon, you look at their little what they call their strong magnets. You don't realize virtually all the materials in every single one of those magnets is either produced in China or the raw material is owned by Chinese companies.
Right.
Over 90%.
That's what they're saying, yeah. And it shows how reliant the U.S. and other Western countries are on these Chinese raw materials. And it also is noteworthy that China just made it clear that it's willing to turn off the taps.
Yeah.
If it doesn't like something, right?
Yeah. You know, it's the downside of the global economy, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Because the global economy was, you're going to have places that are cheaper to produce products, exporting to places that are more wealthy and want to consume products, and everybody wins. Well, everybody wins until.
We have an interesting comment from TikTok. I'm not sure precisely how it relates, but it's from PartySaurus12, and he says, "I've been at the mercy of men just following orders before. Never again." Quote from Magneto.
Yeah, and you know, it's the idea that you want to think is kind of where I take that.
Yeah. So as the country's stranglehold, they say, on supply chain spreads to the EV and solar industries, it's more important than ever to diversify where materials come from. And that was the plan, actually, behind the Inflation Reduction Act. which sought to establish a robust battery and clean energy supply chain in the United States. It's also part of why U.S. automakers like GM and Ford are betting on lithium manganese-rich LMR batteries, because these LMR batteries are less reliant on rare earth materials from countries like China, which Ford and GM both see as important to ensuring supply chains resilience, they call it.
Yep. And even not mentioned in the article here, but you and I have talked at some length in the past. There is that find of however many billions of dollars estimated of rare earth minerals up in Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And that is likely going to be on its way to development within the next 5 to 10 years, or maybe less.
Because of these vulnerabilities that we're exposing now with the tariff situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rivian CEO R.J. Scaringe actually was recently quoted on Bloomberg that his company is looking into motors that don't use rare earth materials.
Makes
magnets
total
primarily.
Sense.
Yeah. Okay.
How would you do an electric motor without a magnet, though?
AC induction motor.
Oh, okay.
You have coils in the stator,
Yeah.
which are generating a three-phase field, and then you have copper coils in the rotor,
Okay.
at a slight angle, which then pull the rotor into the three-phase rotation.
Because the copper itself creates the magnetic field. You're not relying on magnets any longer.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that makes total sense.
So you don't need permanent magnets in that application. And three-phase AC induction motors are what EVs are built on, basically.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, because I'm thinking of the older style electric motors that all rely on magnetic pulse.
Right. All right, so we've got a few images of this situation in Los Angeles, and you can see part of it in our the background there. I'm going to pop up another image here, guys, and this is one that that went viral, actually, standing on top of a... Oh, we do? Okay, we're going to bring those up here. There we go. So YouTube Anti-Elon Tesla Club. Okay, that's an interesting name. The protests in Los Angeles are peaceful. Fox News is spreading lies and propaganda. Well, let's talk about the cost of this, first of all. For these 5 cars, there were 3 that were completely burned to rubble, and 5 Waymos that were vandalized. And you know what the Waymos are. They're like little bubble cars that travel around the city without a driver. And we're really getting used to the fact that you can have driverless 6,000-pound vehicles on the roads and coexist with them.
Yeah.
That's quite a paradigm shift. But anyway, it turns out that these 5 Waymos that were vandalized, which represents about 0.4% of the entire fleet, cost $900,000. That's almost $1 million in cars. Well, where does that cost come from? So that makes each cost about each Waymo about $180,000. Well, they say that the Waymo sensor rig, those are all those cameras and the spinning things that are on there, the sensors, cost $100,000. And then the car on top of that is another $75,000 to $80,000. So that's where these costs are coming from. Although they are bringing down the costs on a lot of these, for now at least, that is the cost of the vehicles.
You know, I did one of my kind of almost favorite activities, go-to activities. I went to ChatGPT and asked it to give me some analysis on it. I'm going to just highlight a couple of things. I've handed this over to the team that does the AI podcast tomorrow, and they're going to do more of a deep dive into this, because there's a lot of layers in the protests themselves, in the analysis that it provides, and in what AI might even recommend be done to help calmly set these protesters and resolve the protests.
You know, it almost seems like it's the beginnings of the human struggle with technology.
There is a little bit of it to that. One of the more interesting points that ChatGPT had made, and it curated this from several sources, you know, Time, Newsweek, Fox News, Reuters, API, or Associated Press, UPI. So it curated this and said one of the themes that's going on is the surveillance and policing concerns. These Waymos are not considered neutral bystanders in this protest. Los Angeles police has in the past used surveillance footage from Waymos in legal prosecutions.
Amazing. And of course, the cars can't operate without that kind of surveillance because they have to be completely aware of everything in their surroundings.
Exactly. And so it says it here in April 2025, an investigation revealed that the LAPD obtained video from a Waymo car to help solve an unrelated hit and run case.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who were attacking these Waymos, part of the reason that they're attacking them is that they see the Waymo not as an innocent bystander, but actually as part of the state surveillance system, that the Waymo is in cooperation with the authorities and they're spying on people as they walk down the street, live their everyday lives. And with the government cracking down on immigration, this becomes a symbol of the anti-government and desire to live their lives.
Of course, there's an irony there. If you're going to attack something that is aware of what you are, who you are, what you look like, and what you're doing, it doesn't seem that intelligent, does it?
It doesn't. These people have obviously forgotten that, okay, if it's a car with a 360-degree high-resolution camera that's good at doing things like picking out people because it needs to avoid them, then it's going to be good at recording all of the people that came up to it and started beating on its top and setting it on fire and stuff like that.
Well, I feel bad then for that kid with the skateboard that was on top of the Waymo smacking the bubble.
Yes.
He's in trouble, isn't he?
He's going to be in trouble.
Facebook, Mike Corkery says, we need to invest more in bi-directional chargers, go electric every household could use those. Well, then, of course, vehicle-to-grid and vehicle-to-vehicle capability in the EVs so that they become part of the storage system in the home, the DC storage system.
And I'm enthusiastically in agreement with Mike. We desperately need that. You and I have talked about as well, where the idea that vehicles could accept charge during the day when the solar power on the house is generating more electricity than the house can use. And then at night, when the home needs that electricity, the home can simply pull what it needs. And the power wall is great. It does exactly that. But why do you need a power wall if you have an electric vehicle with a 100 kilowatt battery in it? Or a Ford Lightning with a 175 kilowatt battery.
Sure. And of course, we're going to eventually redefine the electrical grid, and that it will no longer be in facilities around the state and large, massive industrial complexes. It may be in our homes. That's where the storage is done.
Absolutely.
Feeding the entire grid. So getting back to this problem in Los Angeles with the Waymos burning up, there was a post just a couple hours ago from Donald Trump on Truth Social. And his comment was, if I didn't send in the troops to Los Angeles the last 3 nights, that once beautiful city and great city would be burning to the ground right now, much like the 25,000 houses that burned to the ground in LA. So there you have it. I'm sure folks are going to have some opinions about this statement and this comment because it's very polarized, and we'll please chime in and let us know how you feel about this.
It's my complete opinion is that there is very little press out there in the United States today that is truly unbiased. Whether it's Fox News that seems to have become very biased and entertainment oriented toward the right, or CNN that used to be known as independent and very biased toward the left, or MSN or CBS or most of the mainstream media. I personally go outside the United States to European news services when I want to see more unbiased coverage of what's going on in the United States.
And one might speculate that that poor Australian reporter that got hit with a rubber bullet has a completely new level of bias about our law enforcement.
I would agree with you totally on that.
So here's an interesting headline. Tesla crushes Q1 2025 sales. 128,100 EVs sold, outselling the next, get this, 10 EV brands combined by a massive margin. And this was just in the United States, right?
Yes, it's just in the United States because we know that Tesla produces and sells somewhere around between 350 and 450,000 cars per quarter worldwide. But that was the first, when that number jumped out at me, I thought, oh, wait a minute. There's something wrong here, because I know that Tesla makes a lot more than 128,000 cars every quarter. That number actually represents about an 8.6% drop for Tesla.
Is that right? So there was a decrease.
So there was a decrease.
Okay.
But almost everybody else increased their sales. The most impressive and to me surprising number is, we reported last week on General Motors having this huge spike in sales in Canada. General Motors sold more cars in Canada than Tesla did, in fact, last quarter. General Motors also had a 94% spike in EV sales in the United States, taking over Ford as the second most popular EV maker in the U.S. with 31,887. Ford came in at plus 11.5% at 22,550. BMW at 13,538 is up 26%. Not everybody won, though. There are a couple of other losers, and they were as surprising to me as anyone. Kia first. Kia has the EV4, EV5, EV6 series cars, and those were, and Kia was going gangbusters in 2024, and people thought that Kia/Hyundai might be the next one to go up the ranks. They were down 24.1%.
Interesting. Okay.
Rivian was down 37% in their sales to 8,553 units.
Well, that's surprising.
That's surprising, and for Rivian, that's very concerning, because Rivian's guidance was that they were going to increase their sales from 55,000 last year to above 60,000 this year, and this has come as a surprise.
It was a pullback. Yeah. Okay.
So while most people are doing very well in EV sales, the other, for right now, I will call them a dark horse. But I don't think it'll be that way long, is going to be Toyota.
Yeah.
Their BHEV series or BZ series, it seems to have done pretty well. They sold 5,610 units of electric vehicles overall, and they've only got like 2 models right now, but that was a 195% increase.
Amazing. So threw a cartoon up here, and now we're hoping that with Elon out of politics that it will restore some of this. But those of us that drive Teslas and then occasionally go back to ICE vehicles, like I have to because we've got a fleet of ICE vehicles, once you convert, it's tough to go back to anything else. Especially with summer coming up here in Phoenix. I mean, who wants a big internal combustion engine underneath the hood spewing all kinds of heat through exhaust systems and headers or whatever, when you can have a nice, clean, cool electric vehicle to drive around in when it's 115 outside?
Well, there's nothing quite like leaving the air conditioning on in your electric vehicle for a couple of hours to cool it off.
Yeah.
And knowing that your air conditioner, your compressor, is electric itself. And so it's not like on an ICE vehicle where you're losing all this energy.
Right.
All you have on is that air compressor and the fans to blow your air, which is also conditioning and keeping your battery cool and cooling your cabin. And it makes your car, actually, when you take a drive, it makes it more efficient than it would trying to both drive and cool.
Yeah, I never thought about that. You'd have to leave your entire internal combustion engine drivetrain running in order to keep your car cool.
Yeah, and that uses far more energy than anything on the electric vehicle uses.
Yeah.
And I do. I will. I'm at that time of year where my Model S, when I come back from lunch in the afternoon, I'll leave the air on and I'll leave it plugged in to draw some electricity to run the air, but it conditions the battery, keeps it cool. If I don't do that, I'll be 375 watts or so per mile all the way home. If I do condition it and keep it cool, I'm down at my wintertime levels, which is between 250 and 300 watts
Oh, okay.
to get my car home. That means I save almost 3 kilowatts of energy on my drive home just by leaving the air conditioning.
I never realized that.
And that
yeah.
makes up virtually the entire amount of energy that I used in order to keep it cool.
Right. Right. Okay. Are we streaming on Instagram, guys? We are, okay, because we had a issue this morning. Here's another interesting headline. And this shows that the planet is moving toward sustainable renewables and sustainable energy. They say that wind, solar, and hydro accounted for over 30% of global electricity generation in 2024. Renewables will likely power nearly 50% of the world by 2030. Clean energy is winning.
I'm blown away by that.
Yeah.
With as political and as much as people talk about clean energy is bad and it's going to go away, it's just a fad. 30% is not a fad.
Right.
50% in just another 5 years is not a fad.
It's here to stay.
It's here to stay. That's a big deal. And that also means that anybody who pays the power company extra money to get your energy from clean sources is giving your power company money for free, because if 30% of the grid is powered by clean energy already, you're getting clean energy in your home, whether you pay for it or not.
Interesting.
Pay
yeah,
a premium
that's true.
for it or not.
Yeah. YouTube Bike Guy joined us. He says, good morning from Gilbert.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah. So, got another interesting article here. And this apparently is the first commercial electric airplane that flew between the Hamptons and JFK, big commercial airport, which they feel is, we've got an image here, guys. We can throw up the plane. In a landmark moment, they say, for electric aviation, Beta Technologies has successfully completed the first passenger flight of its all-electric Alia CX-300 aircraft into New York City's John F. Kennedy Airport. It took place June 3rd. It was the first time a battery-powered passenger-carrying aircraft landed at one of the world's busiest commercial airports. This flight is a key part of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey's broader push to reduce its carbon footprint to net zero by the year 2050. It is so it was part of the strategy was that the agency issued a call for proposals to demonstrate the next generation low emission aircraft at its facilities. Now, the other interesting statistics here are, this was a 45-minute flight from the Hamptons to JFK.
Yep.
It took, get this, $8 in electricity for a 5-seater airplane. What would that cost if you think about it with jet fuel?
Oh,
Staggering.
It's staggering. It's, how many gallons per mile do these airplanes take? It blows me away. It's really cool to see. It's exciting. I understand that these planes, just like electric cars are quiet, these planes are incredibly quiet.
Mm-hmm. True. So you don't have the impact on the neighborhoods. And if you think about it, in a commercial jetliner, that plane is using fuel, whether it's sitting on the ground or up in the air. While they're loading baggage, for example, they have to keep, like you had mentioned, the AC running in the cabin.
Yep.
And the air exchange. So it also turns out that there are already 46 charging stations at airports in place already, going up to 50 shortly, they say. And this commercial jet traffic using EVs, electric airplanes, will start in 2026, so next year.
Considering the rate at which charging speeds are increasing,
Hmm.
I could see airplanes taking advantage of some of the higher end engineering that's going on in places like Lucid and Tesla and some of the charging technologies, and being able to pump enough electricity into a battery system in an airplane so that that airplane gets fueled as quickly on electricity as it would via jet fuel.
Yeah. Intercontinental is going to be an interesting new breakthrough for that kind of transportation. You know, can we get enough DC storage on these planes to go across the Atlantic Ocean, for example?
Yeah.
You know, a 45-minute flight is impressive. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I think the same challenges that occurred with EVs are going to occur with this, with the air, transportation.
To me, it will be as significant as Charles Lindbergh flying across the Atlantic for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Got another image here. This is another cool headline. All supporting the migration on the planet is well underway. Electric cars, they say, reduce CO2 emissions by up to 70% over their lifetime. And this statistics comes from Unbox Factory. They say electric cars are more than just a modern trend. They're a powerful step toward climate action. Over the full lifetime, EVs will reduce up to 70% compared to conventional gas or diesel cars. Even when accounting for battery manufacturing and electricity production, EVs maintain a significant advantage in reducing greenhouse gases. As grids around the world shift toward renewable energy, the carbon footprint of EVs continues to shrink even further. I'm going to go into the key benefits here, but we've got some interesting new people chiming in. Instagram, Jimmy's Auto Center says, "Good morning, sirs. Thanks for joining us."
On TikTok, Alan says he's tuned in from Nairobi, Kenya.
Wow, we've got another international visitor.
Well,
That's
thanks
wonderful.
for joining us.
Yeah. And then Facebook, Top Heights Electricals and Electricians says, "Amazing milestone." Agreed.
Agreed.
So the key benefits of electric cars, and they list them, 4 different categories: lower life cycle emissions, zero tailpipe pollution, reduced dependence on fossil fuels, and they support the transition to sustainable transport systems. So, as the article concludes, the road to net zero starts with your next vehicle.
You know, okay, quick question for you. If you think about it, the critics of electric vehicles say that, well, yeah, but you're just shifting pollution. You're not pulling it out. You're
Eliminating
just shifting
it. Yeah, right.
And they say you're causing the power plants to have to generate more electricity, which creates more pollution. What do you think would be the cost of 1 million catalytic converters?
Oh my God! In the black market, and we have platinum that they're heavily loaded with. Yeah, it's there are some interesting counter arguments with those types of notions, aren't there?
You take a look at that, and then you take a look, because that's pollution control equipment for automobiles.
Right.
Contrast that with the pollution control equipment for a natural gas power generating station. I don't know positively, but I would almost guarantee the pollution control equipment for the power generating stations is going to be far, far less expensive than the same equipment for automobiles that are ICE.
Yeah, you have a good point. And those, they will get stricter and more stringent as time goes on.
Yes, they will.
As we have these alternatives. So another interesting article here. Turns out Tesla has just leased an additional 293,000 square feet in Austin, Texas, for further expansion. This is at the Austin Hills Commerce Centers, which is about 6 miles from Giga, Texas. And it's further expanding its footprint in that region. The lease was finalized May 14th, 2025, and occupancy is set to begin June 1st. That was almost a couple weeks ago. So it reinforces that Austin is a central hub for the company's manufacturing and software development and services infrastructure. Tesla has not at this point disclosed the specific use for this new space, but Tesla in the Austin area alone occupies 11 million square feet of space. And according to Google, that happens to be 252 acres under roof of manufacturing capacity or service capacity.
That's a lot of capacity. You know, I have to admit, kind of tongue in cheek here, but do you think the new warehouse is to store all the Cybertrucks that they made that they can't sell?
You know, and that is so reminiscent of the company I worked for, Digital Equipment, that was building the floor-standing line printers. They were piling up, so they built another 500,000 square foot facility up here, just south of us, Union Hills, to store those, rather than get a message and say, wait, maybe those Japanese Okidata printers are taking our market away.
Yeah.
Another image here. This one is interesting. Amazon is getting ready to test humanoid robots for package delivery with Rivian electric vans. So instead of the guy with the blue baseball cap jumping out of the Rivian electric vehicle to deliver your parcel, whatever it is, we may be able to greet humanoid robots at this point in time. I'm going to have a lot of fun with these guys when they show up.
That's going to be really interesting.
It would be, yes. And that's, if you're interested, that is an electric article. And the goal is for the robots to deliver. Yeah. No, you know, that is a great question. This article doesn't allude what that is, but yeah. Wow. And then, of course, at the warehouses, they're already employing robots to do the pick and pack.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, got another image here that we can throw up, and this one is, I can find it. Yeah, there we go. This one caught my interest. There's a picture of a diesel engine and the electric motor that replaces it. And this is not a Tesla product, but it's a pretty good representation. And you can see the massive size of that diesel engine. And then somebody points out and said, yeah, but wait till you see, compare the batteries to the fuel tank.
The reality is that battery is big and wide and thin.
Mm-hmm.
That fuel tank on a diesel engine of that size, it's a 100-gallon fuel tank probably. That looks like
a truck, yeah.
Yeah, that looks like a diesel engine for an 18-wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
That diesel fuel tank is not a lot smaller than that battery.
Yep.
In total volume.
And then let's not forget all the plumbing that goes along with this and all of the controls. And looks like TikTok is joining us. Thank you. Custom Game Room to You says, dogs are going to love this in relation to robot delivery. There
Absolutely.
You go. I'm sure that the social engineers at Amazon are going to figure out the best color combinations and look and feel for these robots to minimize that impact.
Will the dogs still get their treats? Because sometimes delivery drivers will give dogs treats and pets.
Now that's a great idea, Cass. Yes, why not? The robots can certainly carry some treats with them.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We've come to our half hour.
Well, real quick, Highlander just showed up, said hi, everybody.
Highlander, thank you.
Highlander.
Yes, good seeing you again. So tomorrow we've got our AI podcast at 10 o'clock. We'll talk a bit more about the Waymo event. And then Thursday and Friday, we've got the GPS and the COM podcasts. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. I hope you have a great week.